would ask you this then. Would you be
Yeah,
reluctant to make a deal with the Bears to go get Nick Foles?
100% I would not do it.
This man here I love bringing on. And this story with Carson Wentz is remarkable. And our friend Howard Eskin joins us now here
Mark.
on the National Football Show. Howard, I had the only person I thought of was you when the Wentz story broke. Okay, give me your assessment on what you're seeing on how this story's playing out for you with Carson Wentz.
Well, it's not good for Eagles fans because if he doesn't play, let me see, 75% of the snaps or 70% if they make the playoffs, the Eagles only have a second-round pick from Indianapolis rather than get a first-round pick from the Colts. So as much as some nitwits in Philadelphia root against Carson Wentz, and he's not even in the same conference, it's not good. It really is not good for Eagles fans. It's not good for Carson. And Carson's never been anything but fine with me, nice, cordial, cooperative. But he obviously has a body that breaks down a little too much. So when you think about it, I feel bad for Frank Reich. He makes a major decision to go with a quarterback that I thought he could have success with some better players around him than the Eagles had around him last year. But if he doesn't play, it doesn't make any difference. And now they don't have a quarterback.
How about this,
Not
Howard?
at the beginning of the season. I don't think he's going to be there at the beginning of the season.
I don't either. I think he's actually going to miss probably the first 8 games of the year. That's where, I mean, you come back from injury, then you have to rehab too,
Right.
get yourself ready to play here too. So I would throw this at you also. I mean, MCL, ACL, concussion, rib injury, foot injury. I mean, you know, it's one thing to be cursed, but it's another thing, like you said, to have a paper mache body. And I mean, it's almost like Grant Hill when the Magic, you know, made a trade for him. If you're going to make a move for a guy that's always hurt, you're going to get a guy that's always hurt. And do you see this thing just being a one-time thing, or can you see this guy really having a productive career in Indianapolis?
Well, you know, I'm not a doctor, and I can't get inside, you know, whoever it is that makes these decisions for Carson Wentz from a higher power. But he just had so many injuries. I don't count the concussion because that was a cheap shot. That was a total cheap shot when they played Seattle. But the other injuries are real injuries. And his ability to move around in the pocket and be somewhat mobile, maybe not as good as he has been in his college or at the beginning of his career, but he needs his feet. We all need our feet. And if it's going to be a problem, I don't buy, and I tried to check, and nobody seemed to remember that I spoke to within the Eagles of a foot injury that goes back to high school. Somewhere, somehow, you would think that would have shown up somewhere, but apparently it didn't show up anywhere. And Frank Reich said it could go back to high school. I don't know where it goes back to, but it's just part of what his body is. And I feel bad for the guy, and anybody that doesn't. You know, he could have a productive career, whether it's great, whether it's average. He could have some ability to have a productive career, but I don't know where he goes from here. He's going to keep on trying. I don't know how many years that guarantee goes for. It's probably this year and next year. So after that, there has to be some ability to make some hard decisions for the Colts. The Colts had a good team. Man, I saw the beginning of their schedule. Even with Carson Wentz, I don't know they'd win more than 2 games. That is brutal. So to make the playoffs is what the Eagles want. And I don't know if they can do it even if Carson Wentz was there. But I feel bad for the guy. I honestly feel bad for the guy.
I think his name is Eason. But I would ask you this then: would you be
Yeah,
reluctant to make a deal with the Bears to go get Nick Foles?
100%. I would not do it. Now, I love Nick. He's a great guy, and nobody in Philadelphia will ever remember. I mean, he had maybe one of the top 3 games of any quarterback in Super. I'm not talking about quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I'm talking about games in Super Bowl history. It
correct.
was just mind-boggling. Without Nick Foles, the Eagles don't win a Super Bowl. But those days are in the past. Sometimes it doesn't come back, and he's not been able to win a starting job at any place he's gone since. And I don't know that Carson, back then, they were really close. They're very religious guys, both of them, and they were very close. But I don't know that would be good, because when Carson comes back, then you'd have the same things going on in Chicago that happened here in Philadelphia with Carson and Jalen Hurts. So I don't know that that's good for Carson's psyche. And there's other quarterbacks out there. I'd love to see Nick Foles get another shot at being a starting quarterback somewhere, but I think it would be a total mistake for the Colts to bring him in there and think that everything's going to be okay. I think there's other things that they can do. I mean, I would rather have, and I'm not saying he's better than Nick Foles was, Minshew from, I think he's still with Jacksonville, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think he's still with Jacksonville. So, obviously Nick wants to get out of there. He's the third string quarterback. That's not going to, because they got to dress, I would think they've got to dress Fields, and Andy Dalton will probably be the starter. So, but to go to the Colts, I think, I just don't think it would work out well for the Colts, and probably not work out well for Foles or for Carson Wentz.
Would you agree, Howard, that I think, and I'm not saying you because I'm sure that you saw this when the whole dynamic was in place in Philadelphia. I mean, think about it for a second. You had a backup quarterback in Doug Peterson, who was a journeyman. You had a backup quarterback in Frank Reich, who was a journeyman and was a guy who backed up Jim Kelly and Boomer Esiason in college. And all of a sudden, when Wentz goes down, I believe it was the Rams game, if I'm not mistaken, at the Coliseum, they had to put him in the game. And all of a sudden, those guys connected better with him because those guys were in the same position that he was in his career. He's a guy that had to be prepared and a guy that was ready. And to me, I always thought that dynamic, when you ended up taking that dynamic away from Philadelphia's offense, when Frank left, of course, he got elevated to the Colts job. I think that was the undermining of the beginning of the end there for Wentz in that room, because those 3 guys together, along with Foles, that was a hell of a dynamic in that quarterback room. Do you agree?
And yes, but that and there's a lot of things that went into that. And do you think? But can you believe that the Eagles almost fired Frank Reich after his first year as an assistant with Doug Peterson? It almost happened, but it didn't. So history now shows that they were all part of it, and it was important. But that team, and I've covered the Philadelphia Eagles for a lot of years. Chemistry in a football locker room is more important, I think, than any sport, because there's so many guys, there's so many different personalities, there's so many things that have to happen, and the chemistry by all those players. Remember, it wasn't just Carson Wentz that year. They lost 4 starters and their top special teams guy that year, and everybody stepped up and did a great job. The chemistry was amazing. I don't know that chemistry can exist the way it did there. It was the best that I've ever been around in a football locker room. I don't think it can exist anywhere else, and that's one of the reasons it worked. I mean, I think Carson Wentz, I still think, was the MVP that year, even though he missed 3 games. I mean, he had an unbelievable year. The last touchdown pass he threw that season, he had torn ACL. That was the last one. He threw it. I remember I'm standing on the sidelines, and I remember him coming over, and he had a limp. And he never said anything to Doug Peterson. And Doug said, "We're going for it." And he throws a pass, and he knew he was hurt. And he throws a touchdown pass to Alshon Jeffrey. I'll never forget that. But I'll also never forget what Nick Foles did in coming in. Now there's no pressure because you don't even expect to play that game. You're running on just mind memory, and he threw a pass that led to what turned out to be the touchdown that won the game. And it was amazing. The whole game was amazing. The whole season was amazing. But I don't know how you could duplicate that anywhere else, and I don't know how Nick Foles could duplicate it. Carson Wentz obviously didn't finish and see it through. But it is amazing that, yes, Frank Reich was there for it. Nick Foles was there for it. But so were the other 50, 52 or 51 players or 50 players that all jumped in. It was an amazing, amazing locker room. And that was a big part of it, too, because everybody had everybody's back. And what people forget, I'll never forget this question at a news conference of Doug Peterson. The Eagles had a bye week, and Nick did not have a good game his last game. And right before the bye week, before they played Minnesota, it was Minnesota in the I guess it was I forget which game it was. But anyway, somebody asked Doug Peterson, Doug, are you going to go to Nate Sudfeld in this game? You're going to switch up. People had questions about Nick Foles after his last game. They were ready to put. The question was, they're thinking, is he going to go to Nate Sudfeld, who's now I think Washington? He got another job. But are you kidding me? So but the point is, he's had really interesting games. I was there in Oakland when he threw 7 touchdown passes, and that was the year he had 27 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. Yep. He's gone up and down. But the other thing that you have to consider, Nick Foles has never played a complete season either. So you got to be careful on what you do from Frank Reich's standpoint. I think Frank's smarter than that, and he knows, rematches are usually never good as the first time around. So, it's like the Phillies, and just getting off track, they're talking, fans want, what are you going to sign Cole Hamels? You can't relive the World Series in 2008, 13 years ago. Come on. These people are crazy here. They're absolutely nuts. But in Indianapolis, he wouldn't get a lot of heat, I'm sure, from the fans if there was a problem. But I just don't think it's a good idea. I don't know what they're going to do. And I don't know how long. I talked to a doctor based on, now it's a doctor that hasn't seen the MRI, doesn't know exactly what the injury, other than what's reported. The doctor said 6 to 8 weeks. Well, 6 to 8 weeks, you figure 5 weeks gets you into the season. So you may only miss 3 games. So now they're going to have to weigh throughout camp. I don't think anything's going to happen quickly. They're going to have to weigh throughout camp where he is in his progress and his rehab before they make any kind of decision. But it's too bad. I really do feel bad for the guy.
Oh, no, I do too. I feel bad for
the guy.
Boy.
What else can I say?
Yeah. No, I feel bad for Frank too. I want to ask you some Eagle questions here. Lane Johnson the other day comes out and, there's some sort of erroneous report about the coach, doing wacky things and this and that. And all of a sudden, you got, of course, people just want clicks, Howard. And, they're trying to make their own way up in the broadcasting industry. And then all of a sudden you're seeing Eagle guys backing Nick Sirianni. And I mean, just your assessment so far of what you've seen. I know it's almost impossible to get an assessment on a coach before he's even coached a preseason game, because it's a different dynamic being a coordinator versus being a head football coach. But just by the way the team's responding around him, I saw him cancel practice the other day for some reason, whatever it was. He's doing a little bit unconventional stuff.
No, he didn't cancel. Let me interrupt you for a second. He didn't cancel it. He stopped it because he saw some mistakes. But that was a day, which doesn't get out in the clickbait world that we live in. That was a day the veterans had a day off. So he wanted to get the attention, I think, of the young players. So that changes a little bit of that dynamic. Yeah, he stopped it, then he started it up again. So, you can finish your question, but I know the way I'm going to respond to this question.
No, I'm done with it, because it's just what you're seeing with him and how the team's responding around Nick Sirianni.
Well, everybody that's talked publicly has said nothing but good things. Change is important in the pursuit of success. And people should remember that. Now, some change is good from a short term, and some change good long term. I like Dutson as a coach, but they made a change, and you have to move on. Nick Sirianni is enthusiastic. He's organized. He's got energy. The players really enjoy the energy and his honesty with the players. Now, it's easy to be honest when you're not playing a game and you don't know who's going to start and who's going to be the backup. It's easy to do all those things. But I'm impressed so far. But I told, it was a brief comment I made to Nick. I said, it's all good right now, but you could coach a game and win the game by 2 touchdowns. And the media are going to question you about a decision or a play ball. He says, well, that's what I signed up for. So he knows it's coming, especially in Philadelphia. They can't, there's always somebody. And again, it's clickbait. It's unbelievable what social media has done to everything in our world. Everything. I mean, it's not just sports, it's everything. But certainly in sports, and it's going to be interesting. But so far, I'm impressed. Again, hasn't coached a game, not even a preseason game, hasn't had to make any real decisions, hasn't had to make any unpopular decisions, and there's no questions about the way. And he's going to call the play. He's going to call the plays that he's done so far. But so far, I'm impressed with the guys. I mean, it's amazing, his energy. He's got great energy on the field and off the field. And he spoke to us today. He's just always has energy. Now, some of the things he has to say are BS, but because he has to protect a player. But no, he's been pretty good. I've got to say, pretty good. And I've only got to know him a little bit in the world we live in now, which is, you're not in locker rooms. You can't really, you don't have a lot of opportunity to talk face to face. It's only in a controlled environment of a news conference, which we do outside when he speaks. But I've been impressed so far. I have. And
Howard,
I haven't seen anything that I'm disappointed with.
how about this one here? Would you, if you're Howie Roseman, would you make a trade with Houston to bring Deshaun Watson into Philadelphia?
It's not my call to make the decision. However, I will tell you, I think, and this comes from people in Houston, they're going to trade him at some point. When, I don't know. When teams are comfortable, I don't know. I talked to teams around the NFL, and it looks like Denver and Miami are the other teams that may have interest. Probably not may, but do have interest. But when does that all happen? I do think if the Eagles, and nobody knows about Jalen Hurts yet, but when you're trading, I think Peter King had a note that the Eagles still have interest in Watson and Aaron Rodgers next year. Yeah. I don't think they want Aaron Rodgers next year. They want a quarterback that's going to be their quarterback for 5 to 10 years, not a quarterback that's going to be their quarterback for the next 2 years. So I think Aaron Rodgers, that's a pipe dream. It just, and who knows at 40 or 39 or 40 years old. But I think, now I don't know that I agree with it, and I'm having trouble rectifying in my mind. Do you bring in a guy that allegedly has done so many things that just make him look like what are you doing? But I don't know. Nobody knows. And those civil suits aren't going to come up till next year. So does the NFL wait till next year? And there's going to be some kind of penalty. There's no question there's going to be some kind of penalty. But I think the Eagles, I don't know, just the mentality of this team to find a quarterback that they know can be their quarterback for the next maybe 10 years. And nobody's really sure about Jalen Hurts yet. He works hard. He's always in there working. The players like him because he's got leadership qualities. But you still got to complete passes. You still can't turn the ball over. You still can't do. And I don't know that he does or he doesn't. Has he been okay in camp? Yeah, he's been. If I have to rate him on a grade scale, I would say he's probably been a B- or a C+. That's where I'll go with him. But Deshaun Watson, his ability could be a B+ or an A. So again, in sports, and this is a sad thing about sports, it doesn't matter if a guy can play, they put him on a team and they keep him. If a guy is borderline, like who was it? The Panthers got rid of a guy after a cheap shot. He's an undrafted free agent. I mean, you'd shake a tree and 20 of those guys fall out of the tree. It's really kind of like, what difference does it make? And somebody else got banged with. He got found guilty of a felony assault with a girlfriend today, and I don't even know what team. You see so many of them, but he can't. He's not a star player. Hey, listen, when Andy Reid kind of lets things pass a little bit, and he is the all-time disciplined type guy, but I think people accept it if you can play, and if you can't play, then get the hell out of here. But you
Howard,
never come in here in the first place. So I don't know what they're going to do, but go ahead.
Hey, I got to throw this at you. Jimmy Johnson said, and this kind of goes to your line with Jalen Hurts here. Hey, I know guys that work hard at car washes. Okay. He's like, if I could get a talent like a Deshaun Watson and I could bring that guy into the room here. And here's something else too, Howard, that I think the NFL is going to help a team like Philadelphia.
Wait, hold on. Let's stop right here. You being from the U.
Yes.
Know that I was talking. Who was I talking to? That was a Notre Dame guy.
Oh, God.
And I said, you guys got your ass kicked when Jimmy was there. You got your ass kicked.
Oh, we beat the pants off him.
He says, yeah, they were all criminals. I said, not all of them.
Hey, we beat those guys 58-7 one year, Howard. We beat the pants off those guys. And all you heard them saying was, even my grandmother, I went to a Catholic school in Connecticut. My grandmother's like, so Jesus, you do that to Notre Dame? What about all the priests and the cat? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a stupid football game. So to your point about Jimmy, though, Jimmy didn't care about that stuff. He cared this. If the public perception was too bad, they were not going to have a guy like that on his team. There's no way that he would. However, the Charles Haley's of the world, the Michael Irvins of the world, all of that stuff, Howard, I think the NFL is going to do a favor here because they haven't put Deshaun Watson on the exempt list yet. They've kept these like civil cases mum, and there could be like doing disclosure agreements where this may not get out publicly. I don't know, man. I mean, usually the NFL is right out in front, like the Ray Rice story or the Adrian Peterson story. This has been handled differently compared to the other stories that we've seen when it comes to some sort of sexual misconduct here. This has been – the league has not said a word on this thing here, which kind of leads me to believe that they're trying to help this situation both sides. Do you agree?
Well, to a point, but I don't think they want to say anything because they don't want it to affect the decision-making of the courts by if you suspend him now, then you say, right, well, he's guilty. The NFL, they have their own investigation. You don't have to be guilty or innocent. They have to find in a court of law, but you have to be guilty in their investigation or commit some violation. How many guys don't go to jail, don't get arrested, don't get charged, and they're still suspended? And I'm not talking about Tom Brady, the cheater, or Bill Belichick. I'm talking about other people who weren't convicted in a court of law unless they're in jail and for murder or something like that. And who was it? Ray Caruth? Was that the guy from the Panthers Carolina at one time? So, but I don't think they want to kind of tip the scales for anybody in a court of law. It's really the fact that it's not; those things are not going to happen until next year. It doesn't. Once that thing's settled, I just don't think there's any question that Deshaun Watson's going to get a suspension. How many games? Who knows? But he's going to get I just don't see there's any way. It's too much. There's smoke, there's fire. But it is amazing that if you can play, and hey, listen, Urban Meyer had more criminals than Jimmy Johnson.
35 arrests in 6 years.
He had Aaron. Yeah, and Aaron Hernandez. You think he didn't do anything really, really bad when he was at Florida? Come on, he can rest in peace. All right, that's fine, but that's the reality of the situation. Urban Meyer was, as far as allowing guys to just run rampant. Jimmy had discipline, but you had to cut that stuff out. Eventually, you had to cut that stuff out. But and Notre Dame's just jealous because for years, their national championships, you can count on your pinky finger. Forget. I'm not going back to Eric Parsegian. Let's relax here. And the one they won in '88,
stole it.
Cleveland Gary. I saw Jimmy Johnson a few weeks ago. He was in Atlantic City for his fishing tournament. So we talked. I said, I was there, and that was a disgrace. He says, I still can't get over how we were ripped off. And that year they won a championship, and it wouldn't have happened if the officials weren't wearing Notre Dame underwear. It's just, there's no question.
Howard, when we were at UM playing Notre Dame, we beat them one year 58-7. Then the next year we beat them 40-3. I mean, they scored 10 points in the two games I was against them, and it's the biggest beatdown in the history of Notre Dame football. That 58-7. Coach Johnson's running reverses with a minute left in the game, and he's and Eric Parsegian's in the booth moaning about Jimmy just running the score up. We're laughing, and like Bavaro's on that team, and a bunch of other guys. They had really good talent, but they just didn't want to play for Jerry Fouts.
I remember, and I forget what the score was at halftime, but it was a big deficit at halftime. And the biggest play was 3rd and 44. I forget, was it Wesley Carroll? Was that the wide receiver that caught the pass?
Yes.
Maybe it was Wesley Carroll, right?
Yes.
He caught a pass. It was at, I think it was at Miami. I forget where it was. Sometimes, I don't think it was at Notre Dame. I think it was at Miami. And he caught the pass, and I was kind of standing there, and it wasn't far from where I was standing. I says, oh, my God, this game is over. This game is over. And when Lou Holtz came to Philadelphia about a year later, I made sure I reminded him of that play. 3rd and 44. What kind of coach lets a team complete a 3rd and 44? Come on, man.
Hey, Howard, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go with this. I'm going to let you go with this. Here's Coach Holtz when we ever played against him. This Miami guys. I did best. I go, Coach, you're 11-0, dog. Don't give us that crap, man.
Hey, you think Howard, anybody really had a 2.0? You think anybody really had a 2.0 at Notre Dame when Lou Holtz was the coach?
No, I don't.
Stop.
Jerome Bettis was there. No, I do not. Howard, we got to roll. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Love you, Howard. Thank you, my friend. Oh, man, I love talking to Howard Eskin. He's